Bonjour and welcome. I hope that you are doing well. Thank you so much for joining me today to talk about our final books for June. And this month I have been focusing on books that I've wanted to read for a while. Whether that while has been a couple months or a couple years or more. And most of these books have a character that's struggling with something, whether they have an illness or someone they know has an illness, or a mental health crisis, or just something they're struggling to get past in their life. Let's move on to today's books. When I selected my book, at the end of the last video, I selected The Paris Apartment. But when I finished this one, there was another book by Lucy Foley that I've wanted to read for a while, The Guest List, so I've read them both. So we are going to talk about both of these books today, and first up is The Paris Apartment. And while I'd like to be recording this in a coffee shop, since we're talking about Paris and I love their coffee shops, I don't have a coffee shop option. I think the library is a good second choice. Paris Apartment, the main character is Jess. And Jess has just left her job and she needs a place to stay. So she heads to Paris to stay with her brother, Ben. He texts her explaining what to do when she gets there, but when she arrives, there is no sign of Ben. She cannot reach him and she cannot get into his apartment. She can't get into the apartment building at all. And while the concierge sees Jess, she doesn't let her in. Finally, another resident arrives and Jess follows him in. She gets into Ben's apartment and he is not there. There's a suspicious scent of bleach in one area of the floor, as if something was hastily cleaned. There are 7 other residents of the apartment building. Sophie and her husband Jacques live on the top in the penthouse. Antoine and his wife Dominique live on another floor. Mimi and Camille, 2 single women, live on another floor. Nick, an old friend of Ben's, lives there, and he's the one who helped Ben get a room in the apartment building. Sophie is aloof, and not all that she seems to be. Antoine has a violent streak, and Jess witnesses one of his angry outbursts at Dominique. Mimi is withdrawn, and all the residents have a secret that they are hiding. As the hours pass and Ben doesn't show up, Jess decides she's going to go to the police. And as she's going there, she runs into Nick, who accompanies her so that he can help her deal with the police. And when there's still no sign of Ben, Jess decides that she's going to look into his disappearance herself. Her first step is to search through his things for any clues as to where he might be. She also interviews or talks to the other residents of the apartment building. And she gets the sense that something is going on that she's missing. Ben is a journalist and he was working on a story about an organization. And Jess takes up the trail of the investigation, hoping that it's going to lead to Ben. The Paris Apartment is told from multiple viewpoints, including Jess, Nick, Sophie, Mimi, the concierge, and briefly Ben himself. I've seen comments that the characters aren't likable, but I personally think it's more that they're realistically portrayed with all of their faults evident. For some reason, when we read books, or when some of us read books, we like our characters to be mostly good. And that is definitely not the case here. Either way, you're going to be drawn into the story, reading to the end to discover what is going on. For a book similar to The Paris Apartment, I would suggest The House Across the Lake by Riley Sager. In both books, there's a sense of longing for a life that is different than the one the character is leading. The atmosphere is similar in these books too. The guest list shares some of the same elements as The Paris Apartment. The story is told through multiple perspectives. There's a sibling relationship at the heart of the story. The characters are hiding personal secrets. In this book, however, we know that something happens to someone right at the start. We just aren't sure what happened or who it happened to. The characters are attending the wedding of Jules, a magazine publisher, and Will, the star of a survival series. The viewpoints of the story include Jules herself, Olivia, Jules' sister and bridesmaid, Charlie, Jules' old friend and her best man, Hannah, Charlie's wife, who really only knows Charlie out of all the guests at the wedding. She knows Jules a little, but not really much. Jono, Will's old friend and his best man, and Effie, and she is the wedding planner. And like we said at the beginning, each of these characters has a secret they want to keep hidden from the others. Jules has wanted the perfect wedding. She has the perfect groom, Will. She's selected the perfect dress and accessories, and now, thanks to Effie, she has the perfect location. A remote Irish island that is an acknowledgement of her Irish heritage from her father. The island is far enough away from the mainland that cell phone service is spotty at best. So the guests will be focused on her and Will and the wedding, and no one will be able to post photos or videos of the wedding during the wedding itself. Perfect. A few things that are less than perfect. Olivia is acting sullen. She didn't come to the final fitting of the dress, and now that she has it on, it's too big for her. And her attitude. Jules just knows that Olivia is jealous of her for being able to get married and being so successful. Also, Jules has received an anonymous note warning her that Will is not who she thinks he is. But that can't be real. Olivia has been through a lot lately. Her recent relationship has ended, and in hindsight, the guy really wasn't that great. He manipulated her into doing more than she was comfortable with. Now that he is out of her life, she is dealing with the after effects of that relationship all by herself. Hannah and Olivia run into each other while they step out for a breath of air. Hannah has a lot of sympathy for what Olivia is going through. She's known someone who went through a similar situation. Furthermore, Charlie has suggested that they use this trip as an opportunity to get reacquainted, but Hannah's hardly seen him since they got on the island. He's spending all his time with Jules and the wedding party. And Jono, who has been Will's best friend since they attended private school together, has forgotten his suit. He's larger than Will, but will have to make do with one of Will's old suits. He also auditioned for the survival show that Will is on, but the producer didn't feel that he had the right look for the series. Jules realizes that her wedding would be less than perfect without the discount that Effie gave them, and she is so thankful. Effie's professionalism is a huge help to her as well. Throughout the story, we are aware that the wedding isn't going to be the perfection that Jules expects. We just aren't sure exactly how or why it happens. The tension builds slowly throughout the story, and as it continues, we learn more about the relationships between the characters and the flaws in those relationships. For a book similar to The Guest List, I would suggest The Boyfriend by Frieda McFadden. The main character believes that she has found the perfect man until she begins to question if he isn't imperfect after all. Ruth Ware is another author I can suggest for a book similar to this, and first I would suggest One Perfect Couple. The characters are participating in a reality series where they are trying to find the one perfect couple. Or In a Dark, Dark Wood, also by Ruth Ware. The characters are gathered in the English countryside for their friend's bachelorette party before her marriage. But they soon get the feeling that they are not alone in the woods, and the person they're with has evil intent. And there we are. I hope that you enjoyed this look at Lucy Foley's books, including The Pair's Apartment and The Guest List. And I hope that you'll read one or both of these books, and if you like them, give one of the other books a try. especially if you're into atmospheric reads. I'll be back early next week where I will choose my July reads. And we're doing something a little different in July. I know I say that almost every month, but I think it's going to be fun. Thank you so much for joining me here today. I should be back later in the week with an Explore and Create, and I hope that you will join me next time. And until then, I hope you enjoy all that you do and all that you read. And thank you.